welcome everyone to another Star Wars RPG community presentation. Tonight we're hosting a panel of GMs bringing you shrewd advice about running games, the latest updates on community events, and artful answers to all your questions. Welcome to the Spice Pushers.
Your Nikto host leads you into the basement den. Your eyes need a moment to adjust to the low light as you futilely waft away tendrils of vapor, exhaled by the other customers. The Nikto gestures to your left at one set of customers, their arms peppered in injection points along the trail of their veins. The Nikto gestures to your right at a trio of Deveronian, who enjoy making lines and piles of fine orange powder in a shallow box on their table. Which do you prefer, your host asks, the railroad or the sandbox? Welcome, everyone, to the Spice Pushers. Joining us tonight, as always, let me, Jyler, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us about the format of your game.
Hi, I'm Jyler, and I have a Force and Destiny game that I am currently running. With Theater of the Mind, I use the Discord, and I will occasionally pop up a PNG map if I can, but I like to kind of let people imagine it with their own words, and that way we get inputs from the players as well as myself.
The guest of honor tonight, Jasper, if you would introduce yourself from the previous workshop and tell us about the format of your game.
Hello, I'm Jasper. I use Roll20 for running the games with Discord for communication. I use favor maps for presentation, for giving the players an idea of the space. Theatre of the Mind if the scene doesn't call for an entire map design. But I make them myself generally in Photoshop out of maps curated from the Star Wars The Old Republic RPG.
Okay. Octobod, please introduce yourself and tell us about the format of your game.
I run WEG D6 Star Wars, so I'm old, and I run through Zoom and Miro to do the virtual desktops when I do a map, and if I use a map, I steal it off the internet.
All right. Well, let's begin our discussion of focused around Jasper's recent workshop with the question. Just very broadly, what is this game system actually works really well, Theater of the Mind. Oh, by the way, I should probably introduce myself. I am Dave, AsYourGM. I'm running one game in Theater of the Mind, but I'm running a second one, and I'm giving Foundry VTT a try as well. But let's consider that first question, which is like a game that works as well as this one does in Theater of the Mind. What do we think of the value of the addition of a map?
I enjoy them for giving the players a clear, quick idea to latch onto of what the location is. I'll steal miscellaneous art off the internet to host it up for them to say, it looks kind of like this, but if they're navigating a location and that is important for the game, then I like having a map so that they can form a clearer idea of what they're navigating, even if it is not fundamental for the role play thereof and the Theatre of the Mind aspect of it.
Well, I found always in Theater of the Mind, you have the ease of being able to add or subtract things from the region pretty much on a whim. Like if my characters need a dentist's office all of a sudden, and there was not one, on the map that I drew, I can just, in a Theater of the Mind, I can just say, there's a dentist office. Sure, it's run by this Gungan named Bobadoe or something. And, he can fix someone's teeth. But since we did have your GM workshop, I will go ahead and post the map that I made into the event chat. And if anyone out there also wants to post their map as well that we can take a look at, this is the pinnacle.
Oh, pretty.
Thank you. And also, in addition to One other suggestion using different tools, and I actually use Krita for this, Krita, and that is actually a free image editor. And when I say it's free. It doesn't pester you to upgrade or buy a cloud surface or something like that. But yeah, you can do topography lines, which you can see like around the outer edge, because the pinnacle, it basically sits above this giant mist that is quite toxic. But yeah, I took some chunks of things from the various maps and kind of made those available to other users.
I saw and appreciated them.
Yeah. So the scrapyard is basically just a giant jumble of
I was
cookie-cutter
going.
spaceships.
I noticed the scrapyard and was going to compliment you on it.
Oh, thank you. And Rust Town is made entirely of assets from Tatooine. You see all the circular structures and things there, but they're just kind of jumbled together. But yeah, like after the show, if anyone has any questions about Krita or something like that, I'll definitely pass those along. Anyone else have anything for Jasper?
Not necessarily a question, but we could definitely add to the. I love maps being used in this system if you want to give players a sense of importance because of how naturally it works as theaters of the mind. If you give them a ship blueprints and you tell them that this is your room and this is the cockpit and this is where you guys are having your daily meetings, and they get a little bit more sense of ownership between where they are, rather than if they're in a jungle, instead of giving you a large sprawled out, here's where everything is, they kind of just go through it and then they go back to the place where they know where everything is, and you get like a sense of community when they go back to what you've shown them is the correct quote unquote map setup. And I feel like that's a really good process, and the way that you make the maps really adds to the details of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. I actually did a villa map for the B game group recently, and it's kind of become like the default. And they move their little tokens around inside. Oh, this is my room. That's my room. This is where I hang out. I'm watching the holo projector over here. Oh, time for breakfast. Everyone go to the dining room. It's almost like a dollhouse, weirdly enough.
I was about to say, deep down, we all love playing with our dollies.
It's the Sims also,
Yeah.
Yeah, the little mouse droid does its circuits around the facility, that sort of thing. Definitely.
Yep.
All right, Octobod, anything to add or to tangent away? Actually, you had a really good asset that you wanted to mention.
Okay. I've got two great assets. My campaign map is Star Wars Galaxy map. So if you click through that, you get a lovely leaflet app, and if you mouse over a world, just so the name shows up and left click on it, you get a link to Wikipedia.
Oh yeah, that's right. You go straight to the Wikipedia entry for that planet.
So the way I actually run things is I say, right, you're on Korriban. They can click through to the Korriban thing. They know what Wikipedia knows. In fact, the characters have got in-game access to Wikipedia for weird reasons. And so what is actually in the Wikipedia link pretty much always exists. It's an unreliable narrator. There's only 3 things I've removed from it. That's the Yozon Vong, the Sun Crusher, and Mesh Tape.
Of course. Now, you also had an architecture asset, I think, too.
Yes, and if I actually need a map, I will just Google thing I want floor plan or thing I want map. And about half the time, I will actually come up with often a real world map, which I can just upload and use. The star attraction was this map. This was the best map I ever discovered. Now, this is from an architecture demonstration site, and this is a art museum. Now, again, if you click through the link and click the back arrow, you'll flick through a few architects' models, then complete floor plans, and then complete outside and inside photos.
Looking at that thing,
of the
I'd say,
location.
I could definitely imagine some very wealthy individual, like beyond even Jabba the Hutt, like having something like that in their as their residence.
And it's all there free for, they want people to upload it and use it. So yes, it's a lovely resource.
Yeah, and also the benefit of that too is that there is actually a history of using existing architecture in sci-fi. Because I remember there was a sort of meme trend a couple of years ago where people would go to the palace that was used as the Naboo palace and pose as the Star Wars characters to take photos in the same locations. And like I remember too, I grew up in Fort Worth, and when Logan's Run finally came on TV, like the ending shot of Logan's Run, I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, is taken at this beautiful fountain-like architecture, which actually it turns out is the water gardens in Fort Worth, which I actually, as a little kid, I used to play there. So it was actually kind of like I was in a part of Logan's Run in a way. Okay, well, let me think. Other map fun resource stuff, or also just drawing resources too. I'll give a shout out to Fire Alpaca, which is also free. It's free, like I said. It is more character drawing oriented, but like Krita and Photoshop, you're going to get a million tools that you will probably never use in your lifetime. Fire Alpaca is a little more pared down, and is a little more new user friendly. If you want to go, of course, there's also Blender. I was kind of hoping that Jorune would be here because he's been like converting a lot of, or picks up a lot of the 3D figures that are developed in Blender and ported into Tabletop Simulator for his games, and has full 3D maps and things like that. It's actually another angle that you can take for your games, especially if you're playing online.
Addressing an earlier point about Theatre of the Mind providing more players a blank canvas. Sometimes I find that a blank canvas is too daunting for players, and thus giving a map that is detailed enough for them to latch onto without being restrictive can be the perfect impetus for them to create with and to get more elaborate with. The Gyrene-based thermal power plant, which I'm sharing in the event chat, has plenty of details given, but in one of the sessions I ran with it, the miscellaneous tech stations near the primary thermal core became control points for it because the players asked if there were any computer mechanisms nearby. So, like saying the dentist run by Bobo is over here, it was vague enough for me to say, yep, the computer control ports are over here.
We also had a comment from the audience about maps. Crispy and his friends use a whiteboard for on-the-spot quick map layouts.
Oh, I definitely went through a period of
Yeah.
dry erase maps for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And they do make some good sci-fi ones now. And the tip that I will give is, like, you get one of those, you have to kind of unfold it. Take a pair of scissors and cut the dry erase map along those folds, and then you can kind of reconfigure them and make a long map, or you can flip it over and make a mixed terrain map, things like that. I had a lot of fun messing around with those when I was more of a D&D player.
My advice is clean them as soon as you're done, or those stains will stick. Sorry, Octobod.
If you go over the existing stains with the dry erase marker again, it will reintroduce the oil that evaporates when they dry out, and then you can erase it.
Ah.
Octo, what you got?
Oh, speaking of an online solution, I use this site called Miro.com, and they offer 3 unlimited sized whiteboards for free. You can upload images to them, so you can stick your map on it, and then the players can actually upload graphics representing their characters, move them around. It's also got whiteboard style marking, so you can actually scribble your map in crayon on Miro, and also keep it, because there's ways of saving it.
Hey, welcome, Jorune.
Yes, hi. Sorry I'm late.
No, that's okay. Well, we're going to go into the raw deal where we do the quiz. But before we do, go ahead and just give yourself a quick introduction and tell us about the format of your game.
Quick introduction. I was a role player in my late teens, early 20s. And then I gave it up, and in my late 40s, I've come back to it. Obviously, the technology's completely changed from the 80s, and COVID initially didn't help, but then I started finding these online resources such as Roll20, Tabletop Simulator, and that's probably what really brought me back full.
Glad to have you back.
TTS is pretty impressive, yeah.
Yes, I do a lot of 3D maps that I create in TTS.
But Jasper, I know you've got a limited amount of time with us, so let's get to the part that I think everyone loves the most. This is the part where I quiz my fellow GMs and the audience on the rules I've written and according to the rule book, and a little thing that I like to call the raw deal. So, Key, if you would, post the general mechanics question, and she'll put that in event chat, and y'all can read along. Okay, so a player has suffered the critical hit Compromise, which increases the difficulty of all skill checks by 1 until the end of the encounter. The player attempts to defuse a bomb that is close to detonation. For various reasons, the base difficulty of defusing it is set for 2 challenge dice. The GM has further complicated the defusing by flipping a destiny token, one is available, to upgrade the pool. Since 2 challenge die are already showing, the GM adds a purple difficulty die, destiny token, and the Compromise critical hit adds a second one for a total of 2 challenge and 2 difficulty. Is this the correct application of increases and upgrades to the dice pool? So let's start with Jasper.
Yes, it is correct.
Okay. Got yes from Jasper. Jorune.
Yeah, I feel it's correct also.
Okay. Jyler.
I feel like it would not be correct. I feel like it would be 3
Don't
red.
expand on your explanation.
But
we'll get to
I
that.
think that's what it would be. I think it's not correct.
Okay. Octo, I know you don't run this system, but go ahead and take a guess if you feel like it.
I was about to say that I think that dice, was it games with more than 6-sided dice is unnatural.
Okay, so let's take a look at what the community is voting. Not a lot. Crispy Jaw was saying yes. Go ahead and click the upvote there, Crispy, if you would. Everyone else, go ahead and jump on the bandwagon before I announce the answer. So Jasper, Jorune, would you like to expand on your yes answer, please?
Well, if this situation arose, I would lunge for the book and double check because I'm not fully appraised with the rules. However, here I'd say that Compromised increases difficulty. That is flat enough. Just add a purple. It's not upgrade. It is add 1 difficulty. So with the extra purple already added, then that just makes 2 purples.
Okay, Jorune. Your yes answer.
I agree with what Jasper said.
Okay,
We just had
go ahead.
We just had a session last night, and my understanding was that when you're doing the difficulty, that's the purple dice get upgraded first, and then if you can't upgrade, then you'd add more purple dice.
Yes, that is correct. Jyler, though, your no answer.
My no answer is set because I believe the increase of difficulty would be applied before the GM would have a chance to flip a destiny point to upgrade. So since it's already been increased, the upgrade will is set instead of adding a purple transform it to a red upgraded die.
Okay. Per rules as written, Edge of the Empire, page 20, when modifying the dice pool, players perform the modification in a specific order. First, players assemble the pool, then they add additional dice, then they upgrade dice, then they downgrade dice, then they remove dice. Based upon this order, the correct difficulty portion of the pool should be 3 challenge dice, because the increase from the crit would be applied first, that adds on a purple, and then flipping the destiny token induces an upgrade. And under certain circumstances, yes, an upgrade can add a purple as well, but only if all the other dice are red. So in this case, it would be 3 challenge die for the difficulty. Per rules as written, yes. Okay, good debate, though.
Yeah, fun.
Yeah, okay. Key, if you would post the combat question next, and y'all can read along as I read aloud like you were in first grade. Player 1 and Player 2 are flying an unmodified Silhouette 5 Space Master medium transport, which supports multiple pilots. The ship is being pursued by Imperial TIE fighters. Player 1 takes the punch-it maneuver, and Player 2 takes the angle deflector shields maneuver. Under the circumstances, can they perform these 2 maneuvers? So let's start with Jyler this time.
You chose the bane of my existence, space combat.
We had this workshop.
I know. I'm gonna say yes.
Yes. Okay. Let's see. Actually, we'll go with Octo next. If you'd like to give some input into this.
Well, I'd just like to say that this makes me feel so young because it reminds me of the time when all the rules were strange and mysterious.
That is a wonderful feeling, isn't it? Like you crack open a rule book and it's all just it unravels the universe in a series of rules in a way. Yeah. Jasper, though, your answer.
I'd say that yes, they can.
Okay, Jorune.
So to be clear, you said the pilot is doing the punch-it maneuver, and a co-pilot is doing deflector shields.
That is correct.
Yeah, they could do that.
Okay, and the chat, we've got 2 upvotes that say yes, 1 vote that says down. Okay, but the answer, though, per rules as written, is actually no. It is a double trick question. Ha ha ha. Although the second pilot can perform the angle deflector shields since it is a non-pilot maneuver, the primary pilot cannot perform the punch-in maneuver on a Silhouette 5 craft. Page 233. Sorry. This starship maneuver is restricted to ships of Silhouette 5 or lower, as larger vessels have too much mass to accelerate so quickly.
Do you mean 4 or lower?
Sneaky, yes.
do you mean 4 or lower?
Okay, Key, please post the skill question. And of course, these are a little more straightforward, thankfully. Okay. A player is being introduced to a local crime lord through a connection in that crime lord's network. The connection introduces the player to the crime lord as a friend of mine. What skill would be used to interpret any alternate meaning of this phrase? Knowledge underworld, cool, streetwise, or vigilance? Let's start with Jorune.
And I'm sorry, can you just do that one more time?
Oh, it's typed out in the event chat too as well.
Oh. Good. Why don't you just skip me for now while I try to
Okay. We'll start with Jasper again then.
My answer is all of the above.
Okay. Both equally reliable and unreliable answer. Yes. As the GM, though, you do have to pick a skill. Jyler.
I am going to choose the B. Knowledge underworld, I believe, is the rules as written correct choice.
Okay. Octobod, would you like to make a guess?
Well, actually, this is driving me to drink.
Hopefully not the other way around.
As most rule books do.
Just take a stab at it. Go ahead.
Oh. Streetwise, it's always streetwise.
You sound like one of my players.
Okay.
Well, I put most
Jorune.
points into streetwise.
Yeah, it's funny. There's a couple ways you could go. I think
there definitely
I feel
are,
like it's I feel like it could be vigilance if the crime lord is trying to see if there's a tone, but if he's a friend of his, they may already know what the code words are, which would be Streetwise.
Okay. Jasper, would you like to revise your answer from all of the above?
If I have to give one, I'd probably go with Knowledge Underworld B.
Okay, I got 2 Knowledge Underworld, 2 Streetwise. Hearty debate then. Wonderful. Okay. Actually, we've kind of already had a bit of discussion too from this, so I'll go ahead and get to the answer. It looks like the audience likes Streetwise quite a bit, with a little Knowledge Underworld as well. But the answer, page 119, Streetwise represents a character's instinct for how to pick up on subtle clues from the language and attributes of those who operate outside of legal structures. It may be used to understand subtle references within conversations. The phrase "friend of mine" comes from the movie Donnie Brasco, where Al Pacino introduces Johnny Depp to another crime lord and refers to him as a friend of mine to indicate that he is not a made man. If he introduced him as a friend of ours, it would indicate that Johnny Depp was a made man. And okay, let's see. Let's return to Jorune and your
Yes.
just give us some of your experiences with Tabletop Simulator.
I started with Roll20, I think in January of this year, and in about 2 months, I discovered Tabletop Simulator. Now, I don't know if everyone knows who Marlow is. Marlow runs, this Discord channel, a lot of the Star Wars RPG community. It was his assets that he had created, this assets package, that just really brought me down that rabbit hole. A few people had made the FFG Star Wars game tables, which is to say, you could just get the program, go to a workshop, pick one of these tables, and it's kind of set out as if everyone was virtually sitting around the table. But it was, and then you could use whatever maps you want, if you want 2D maps, flat maps. But Marlow had curated all these Star Wars assets into one program.
Yeah,
And
I've given
because
it a
of that,
preview. Yeah, it's pretty impressive, definitely.
very impressive. It makes it very easy then to go shopping to get your bits together, then go back to your game table and now create a 3D map.
Do all of your players need a copy of the Tabletop Simulator?
Yes. But Tabletop Simulator is normally $20, and whenever there's a sale, it goes on sale, and it's like $10.
Yeah, I remember picking it up fairly inexpensively too. Let's see. So let's go
post to one like this. I just post a picture. This is Marlow. Then also created a miniature asset creator. So I just posted a picture there where you can go in and you take a head, you take a body, you take a weapon, you take a base, and you can mix and match things.
Ah, nice. Yeah, I've played around a bit with Blender. I don't know if I'm at the point yet where I'm making Star Wars assets, especially since I have a lot of...
Yep, yeah. This is not Blender.
I know.
Oh, he created this right in Tabletop Simulator. You do the workshop and did it for you.
Ah, okay. I do love in the background, you got those kind of posted spaceships, or I see the little heads on a stick, yeah.
Yep.
Just kind of stack them together, I suppose. That works.
Yeah.
Okay, someone had a butt.
Oh no, it was just back in the olden days when we met in person, I used to use Lego minifigs as my game counters.
Nice.
Which works even better these days because, of course, you have the Star Wars Lego minifigs. Okay, well, let's move on to the non-Star Wars movie that could be recontextualized as Star Wars, non-samurai, World War II, and Western. Since I know Jasper has to run, and I think this was your suggestion, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, although we actually prefer Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory because that's the better version of the two movies. but pitch Charlie and the Chocolate Factory as a Star Wars movie.
Okay, so I'd phrase it as there's a droid factory that if it's as a Star Wars movie, I've been planning it as a campaign session. a droid factory which the players receive a stray transmission inviting them to from amongst their usual droid part deliveries. There's a golden hollow transmitter which emits an invitation to come to an uncharted planet to see the mysterious droid factory. There they engage in a series of challenges and trials against a colourful cast of other invitees, other winners. They face off in challenges, are done in by their own greed, and should the players succeed, and should the GM wish to grant them such a boon, they could walk away from this with a droid factory. That would be the point where you upgrade your players from skirmishes to, players in politics at that point. It would be
sending others off to the skirmishes, that sort of thing. Yeah,
exactly.
Well, before you jumped in, and actually earlier we were talking and thinking like it would also kind of be an interesting take on like the Padawan selection process. Like you have you have an ancient Jedi who's very learned and whose instruction is very coveted, and he invites Padawans to his I don't know, chocolate factory, his house of horrors, his house of Sith artifacts, something like that, and tempts each one of them with their heart's desire. I could see myself running that as a one-shot. That would be kind of cool.
Padawans, Master Wilder has invited you to his training academy.
It took me a second.
Master Wilder, yeah. Well, how would he distribute the golden tickets, though? Would they be wrapped up in practice sabers or something?
He's hidden golden kyber crystals in the mines.
Oh, the Kyber man can. No.
Except it's a Jawa singing it.
Oh yeah. A Jawa is the Kyber man. Okay. Jyler, though, you suggested, and I think this may be a harder session pitch, the movie Inner Space, a film where Dennis Quaid is shrunk down and placed into the body of Martin Short.
Yes. So this is more of a long term in my mind, because I imagine they would want to spend 1 or 2 sessions, maybe even more, being stuck inside this NPC. Essentially, and I have the notes down, let me pull these up. Yes, the party gets chosen/paid, depending on if their duty or obligation, to do a secret rebel experiment involving micro-shrinking technology and go inside a womp rat to test the process. But after they've shrunk, the Empire attacks, causing destruction and a hinder to the plans, so the lead scientist takes the party, now shrunk, and tries to escape, but gets fatally wounded. He manages to get inside an escape pod and ejects to the planet below, running into a seemingly normal NPC, where the players are now injected to, and then shenanigans ensue.
Okay. Well, I like Inner Space is kind of actually a reimagining, in a way, kind of a comedic reimagining of Fantastic Voyage, which is like 1966, 1967. Scientists get put in a submarine that gets shrunk down and then injected into someone to perform like a really risky surgery or something like that. I think my main problem, like historically, like shrinking is very pulp for sure. But it's also, most of the time when it's been used in the fiction that I've read, it's usually been something a little more high-minded than Star Wars. It's you see it in like Cold War fiction as a weapon. In fact, like even in Ant-Man, they joke about the shrinking being like a form of Cold War propaganda itself. We do see some cool things in Clone Wars, like the genetic disguise device. That's very high-minded sci-fi, but I don't know if I don't know, shrinking just feels kind of kind of harder sci-fi to me.
It definitely is like the sci-fi era, which is, of course, kind of, we have Star Wars being more of a sci-fi fantasy game. But there was just like this kind of concept where I imagined they find out that the NPC that they're in is also force sensitive. So they end up actually seeing midichlorians like inside the blood when they're inside. And there's like a lot of different things that they can do with that.
Can they eat the midichlorians to gain force powers for themselves? Who knows?
No,
And
but
they alter
in fact,
the
they find out that
midichlorians.
they are being attacked by the midichlorians because they don't belong there. So they're kind of like white blood cell encounter.
Oh, yeah.
It occurs to me that you don't actually need to shrink the players. There are plenty of mega structures and mega animals wandering around in Star Wars.
I did go
Ordinary
to the
people
mega.
going into a huge thing.
I did go into the megafauna angle myself as well, Octobod.
I've got to ask, because I mean, as someone who saw the first Star Wars actually in a theater, in my games, I don't even want the words midichlorian spoken. Am I alone on this? Like, has everyone kind of gathered and said, "Yeah, okay, we'll buy into this"? Because when I first heard it for Phantom Menace, I just said, "All right, this is Star Trek. It's not Star Wars." Lucas, you should have given this, someone else to write it and someone else to direct, and I just thought it was stupid. Am I alone on that?
And it's understandable. It's understandable.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just my explanation of the midichlorian was a mad scientist grant proposal gone mad. He wanted to sort of fund some, a jolly, exploration around the rim. So he put together a thing about these midichlorian and they're awesome and stuff. And then his lab assistant discovered so-called evidence for it, and they've been wrong ever since.
Interesting. They do introduce M count in the Mandalorian, which we'll get to spoiler discussion of some of the more recent stuff like that at the very end here. Jasper, we're not keeping you from your flight, I hope.
I'll just comment on midichlorians and my position on them because it's a juicy topic, but then I will have to bow out.
Okay.
All right.
For our own friend group, we're all 90s kids generally. We don't necessarily like midichlorians, but it's never really been large enough to affect it. It seems silly, but also it's easy enough to ignore for us. And if it comes up as a narrative thing, then we're just like, oh yeah, okay, that's present. That's sure. But my own personal interpretation is it is one theory amongst many of some Jedi to try to understand the Force. He came up with a more sciencey jargon way to interpret its mysticism. Noticed that some of these cells tend to be more prevalent in people who are Force sensitive, and that was certainly true in his study that he conducted. Might need some peer reviewing. It's who can say, really, but it's just one theory amongst many, and ultimately the Force is something weird and wild that no microscope can nail down.
And his peers were so afraid of his scientific explanation, they burned him at the stake and called him a Sith.
Exactly.
Yeah, all right. So usually our final segment, some notable gameplay challenges of the past month. One of the things that we pitched to each other was like the influential tip from when you first began. Anyone have like one especially big suggestion from another GM or DM who that kind of stuck with you and that you've kept in your games since then?
Just before we do, Jasper, do you have to bow out here?
I do have to bow out. I
Thank
was
you so much
buzzing
for joining us.
with influential tips, but no, I do have to call it here. Thank you for inviting me.
Certainly.
Of course.
It's been a blast, and hopefully the next one happens when I don't have a flight tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for joining us, though.
You're quite welcome. Thanks for inviting me. See you next time.
Definitely.
Ta-da!
Toodles. Okay. The influential tip of your GM career. And anyone want to volunteer? I know I have one, but does anyone else want to volunteer one?
This wasn't given to me. This was one that I learned.
Okay.
Record your sessions.
Actually,
of course. So have a recorder, video recording, whatever. Record your session. You can do speech to text conversion, which makes it considerably easier to sort of flip through a session. And then 2 years down the line, you know what happened.
Yeah, definitely. One of my more pleasant guilty pleasures is listening to the recording of my games during that brief period of time where I'm up getting a refill.
The other thing is that I ran games 30 years ago, and I've still got the character sheets, but I have literally no memory of what happened. And now I'm actually going back and plundering my previous work as background and informing what I'm currently doing. I've sort of developed a gameverse, so all my games are in the same universe, even if they're in different systems.
Okay. Anyone else want to jump in?
Yeah, I would say to prospective GMs, don't ever let the rules get in the way of the story. And by that, I mean, with these games, there's just a lot of rules in there. There's a lot to take in, especially when you're starting out. And sometimes, as they start coming out with source books, there's even more rules everywhere. And you'll always have that player who knows where a rule is on a certain page. Don't stop playing. Just say, look, if I got it wrong, we'll fix it for the next session, but let's just keep going.
Jyler, you want to throw one out?
Well, I was actually, one of mine was going to be that exact point.
Okay.
It's the you put a timer of about 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes, and you look for the rule. If you can't find it, you move on, and if you find it, you apply it. That's kind of like, you don't let it bog down the game session. But to kind of add on to another one that I could imply, one is listen to your players. Always ask, because there's difference between feedback and making sure that your story is correct, but also if your players are having fun, because GMs are also players in a game, and if one person isn't having fun, then you could try to figure out a way to, or why that's the case. Basically, open communication is really important because this is a very social game. So just be in touch with all your players, and hopefully all your other players are in touch with each other, and being able to have a communicative game makes a long-standing game.
Right. I think the one that has stuck with me. Oh, go ahead.
It's like no difference than when a bunch of friends watch a movie and afterwards you guys are all talking about it. You should definitely do the same thing at the end of every session. Talk about it, this, that, and you'll hear if someone's not enjoying something you could pick up, or you just come right out and ask them, is there something we could do that you guys think would be cooler or something? And listen to them.
Yeah, they'd be able to, what would you like to do next? Yeah, definitely. But the one that's always stuck with me is when developing a scenario for players is to present the problem, not the solution. Don't. It is tempting to kind of hand them the steps that, hey, you're trying to do this, and if you don't get it done on time, something terrible is going to happen. Present the problem, not the solution. Tell the players, hey, you got to infiltrate the power plant to extract some information. And that's kind of it. That's the scenario. Let the players pitch some things like, is there like a bar where I can go to where the mechanics hang out? Can I patrol it to figure out, what's the route for security? What are the camera angles? Are there deliveries? Let the players kind of pitch their own solutions and run with them on the basis of their plausibility. Set the appropriate difficulty and roll the dice, so to speak.
Yeah, I had read an article where someone was breaking the idea down of, you don't want a scripted adventure, but at the same time, you do have these plot points that the players have to get to. And his thing was, make sure there's at least 3 different things the players could do to get there.
Yes,
and then by doing this, the idea of doing that is, if the plot can't move, if they can't find so and so, and you only gave them one way to find so and they don't pick up on it, then your game is dead in the water. So always make sure there's at least 3 different ways someone can do something.
Yeah, I've
And
actually
be
never.
prepared for,
Sorry, go ahead.
and be prepared for way number 4.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I was going to bring that up too. Players will present a solution that you hadn't considered before, but again, set the difficulty appropriately according to the plausibility of the plan, and get to rolling the dice and having some fun and letting that threat and advantage and triumph and despair pop up in fun and interesting ways.
Definitely be open to what the other players do. Don't put them in a box, have them fail their investigation check, and now saying you're stuck in the box because you failed the check. Make sure that there's always a way out.
Yeah. Can I rip a hole in the box? No. That doesn't work. Okay. I'll throw some announcements here, and then we will get to spoiler discussion for the Book of Boba for those who are inclined for it. Species collaboration was this past month. We're going over the Ardinian. That's Rio, the forearm guy from Solo. He's one of them. And these are all kind of racer themes. The Troig, who's the 2-head forearm pod race announcer. The Tung, the diamond-shaped species, that one pod racer, Quadranaros from episode 1, if you'll remember. And the Ugnaught, the mandatory mechanic, as played iconically now by Nick Nolte from Mandalorian. Yeah. Coming up is a contest month, factions. If you want to make a faction, you need a history, an organizational structure, a function for it. Does it make products, services? Is it legal? Is it illegal? And some potential for PC encounters. 2,000 word maximum. The judgment criteria for this is going to be the relevance to racing, the originality, the employability, and the personality and flair of it. I am going to submit a racing part pyramid scheme where the parts are overpriced, but if you volunteer to sell them and you manage to sell some of the parts, you get your parts for free. Okay, and the upcoming workshop is, oh my gosh, it's me! I'm doing the obligation deep dive. That means on the next Spice Pushers, I'm the special guest, which means that I have to find 3 other guests now. This is getting kind of tough. So, let me put the call out. If you'd like to volunteer for this program, if you got something you may want to say about the obligation system or the duty system or the morality system, we'd love to hear it during that episode of Spice Pushers. But also, if you want to pitch a non-samurai World War II Western movie to recontextualize as a possible Star Wars scenario, we'd love to hear from you. If you just think the raw deal is cool, we'd love to hear from you. If you got a notable gameplay challenge that you'd like to discuss with other GMs, yeah, we'd love to hear from you. Okay, I think that's it. Go ahead, Key.
Before you go to spoilers, let's have questions from the audience. In
Oh,
case,
yeah, that's right,
they
that's
have
right.
to wander off.
Okay, if there's, I think we got a little bit of time. We don't have a big audience tonight. I'm a little surprised. But anyone want to volunteer to discussion also too?
You can raise your hand using the stage functionality if you'd like to step up and speak, or you can type your question in the event chat and I will read it for you.
Key, I have decided instead of the status of host, we should promote her to producer. And that way, if this program wins an Emmy, she gets one of the statues. Because if you're the producer of a program and you win an Emmy, you get one of the statues.
You think you're getting an Emmy? Is that?
No, of course not.
A streamy could be a thing.
But like if you fill out a resume or a CV or something like that, you can put yourself on there as producer.
That's fair. But we do have a question from the audience.
Oh, goody!
What's your favorite adventure you've ever run?
I'm happy to answer this because I ran it very, very recently. I just finished watching Murder on the Orient Express. And so, Jyler, you've played on Broom before. You know about the toxic mist that's everywhere. But there's this grav tram that floats above the mist that the players and NPCs can use. So the players are on this grav tram and they're stuck there, like you can't get off. You're surrounded by mist. So to kind of lighten the mood, there's this wizard on board who decides to put on a show. He's not a Jedi or anything like that. He is a normal illusionist wizard. However, the lights go out, and when they come back on, there's this giant pool of blood on the floor. No one knows where it came from, No one is missing. No one shows any visible injuries. And the players have the next 6 days to figure out what happened, because something bad happened to somebody, and that somebody happens to be an Imperial informant. And if they aren't found before the players arrive at the station, some bad things are going to happen. Anyone else?
I think my favorite adventure might be my first one. Not necessarily because it's good, but because of just how much of an impact it left on me. It was a Star Wars game that essentially took place at the exact same time as the original trilogy movies. So the Death Star hadn't been destroyed yet, but then they witnessed the destruction of it. They were on Hoth right before a Millennium Falcon flew into the Rebel base, and like it was kind of cool to like put them in the movie without them being parts of the movie. And I think we also had our own little aspects of it, because there was a Jedi, there was an old clone veteran, and there were various other types of group members that really gave the party variety. And I think just because it was my first one, it was my favorite.
Octo, you said you had a non-Star Wars one?
Yeah, and weird. I'm sorry. I watched too much Doom Patrol. Okay, I called this it was a one-shot convention. I called it the Uncivil War, where all the players were NPCs inside the GM's head. And they had basically two stats, love and background. Love was how much the GM liked them, and background was how much information there was about them. And their job was to keep the players on track, off all the blank bits of the map, and not talking to anyone with less than one sentence of background. Then the vampire munchkins turned up and started trashing the place, and they had to sort of kill off the vastly powerful Darren Allslaughter, 25th level fighter thief, magic user, illusionist, cleric, assassin, anti-paladin, paladin. And he had a 25 rack wands of magic missiles and fireballs, all with the command word Daka Daka, and the other ones were even worse. They got defeated in various weird ways.
Shades of 40k in there. Okay.
Mm.
Jorune, anyone you'd like to volunteer?
No.
Okay.
I mean, for me, I think just I've only been doing the tabletop for a few months now, but for me, almost every one of those, because it's always been about atmosphere and theme for me, and this allows me to do that. And again, it allows me to do that by, instead of saying something's big and having people try to picture it, which they tend not to, it's there.
Which one weapon or item do you go to lengths avoiding introducing or letting your players get a hold of for balancing issues?
Ooh, I honestly haven't been playing long enough, I'd say, to
I have
this
an
question.
answer.
Oh, go right ahead.
The Disruptor Pistol / Disruptor Rifle.
Yes.
I will do everything in my power to not let the players have it, and I will not even give it to my NPCs, because I know if I do, they'll steal it off its corpse.
Wisely chosen.
And on the flip side of that, for me, it's always trying to remind the players that, don't you guys have grenades? They'll get pinned down so many times, and for some reason, just forget they got grenades on their belts.
I've done supers for far too long, and the one power I outright ban is invisibility, because it is so terribly binary. If it works as intended, they become a god, but if the opposition come up with any countermeasures, it stops being a power. So there's very little sort of ground between those two extremes.
And we have Sonata's question now. My players in a game are trying to get back valuable materials from a hut, but there's going to be a representative for the Crimson Dawn as well as the Zan Consortium present at the meeting. Should I make this a full-on social encounter with the strain threshold and everything, or how would you run this?
I would definitely say as a social encounter, because sometimes those can be the best experiences. as opposed to I'm going to go here, I'm going to shoot this, I'm going to shoot that. Allow the players to actually say, don't worry so much about rolling, really just melt into your characters.
To kind of add on to that, I think it would be interesting. I actually am introducing a social adversary to one of my characters in my game because they're not very good at physical combat like the other players are, but they're really good at charming and being deceptive. So I'm trying to add like a heal to them. So I would definitely try implying successes being the attack and draining that from their strain. And then whoever loses their strain threshold first is the one who kind of bows out from their deals.
Yeah, I think to answer another user's questions, I think they may be referring to the social encounter pseudo combat rules that's in the Genesis the Genesis game system. I haven't run that system yet, unfortunately. Yeah. Yep, and that's exactly what Sonata posted. Okay. That answers that question.
Side note, Genesis is of course like the kind of backbone of the FFG Star Wars set, and there's a lot of cool things that you can find from reading it and implement into your games. Sometimes I'll just get lost reading it, being like, "Ooh, I should do that. Ooh, I should do that."
Yes, and unlike the Star Wars books, you can get them digitally.
I think the Genesis came out after Star Wars, right? I think Star Wars was the first system from the Genesis, and then
That is correct.
And then it basically morphed into that. So you'd say it's a more mature rule set.
Yeah, a little more pared down, a little more play tested, you might say too. I'm definitely diving into Genesis before too long. Maybe cooking up an original setting of some kind.
Does anyone else have a question before we do move on? There's a lot of conversation happening.
All
in
of a sudden, all the
right
interest
now.
is now there. Yeah. What item, not weapon, of 0 to 1 encumbrance do you enjoy using or seeing used? Well, I mean, grenades are always great. You can never go wrong with a grenade.
Drop grenades
My players use a lot of med packs
against Wookiee.
Yeah, I think we've told this joke before, but the suit made out of med packs.
Yeah, because they keep forgetting they've got grenades.
Okay, I don't want to keep everyone. Go ahead, Jyler. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, like, my favorite one is there's a quick gel that's used to like melt beams, like a welding material. When I was using it, I tried using it for like every situation, and they also give it a weapon quality in the book, and I'm like, ooh, so I can do my mechanics instead of a brawl check on this guy. So I always kind of love any item that a player can take and reinvent that makes sense. I love those type of items.
Yeah, I'm actually trying something a little different for shopping in my current campaign. Like, I'll always make sure that there's a vendor, and that vendor has a couple of items. But rather than letting players, just pick things and ask, hey, is this available? Is that available? The vendor will say, okay, yeah, I can probably get that tomorrow or maybe next week or something like that. But here's some stuff that I have right now. And this ended up in one of the more interesting exchanges with the B game group, actually, where one of the things being sold was a whip, of all things. And the players found themselves asking, are we whip people? Are we really?
One last question. Me and my players, this is Crispy, are doing a game where we set up a colony. The plot is fairly loose and easygoing, but it's beginning to get more combat heavy than I intended. Is there a way I can de-escalate?
I mean, the boring answer is talk to your players. Make sure, like, if they want something more combat heavy, and kind of let them know that that's not what you were intending. But if they're, willing to kind of compromise, you're willing to compromise, you could try to find like some sort of middle ground. But if you're trying to do it like covertly, it's hard, because if you try to give them too big of a adversary, they'll be like, no, we can take them down, and then you end up just doing a TPK.
Well, it sounds like this is the perfect time for a treaty or perhaps a parley. The players and whoever they're colonizing with or against should perhaps have some sort of opportunity to signal the opposition to say, hey, let us begin to discuss this matter in a civilized manner.
So to add on to that, if I really don't want my players to kill an NPC, I have them surrender. 9 times out of 10, they won't kill them.
Yeah, that worked very well for our group the other day.
This is going to come as a criticism. I was in a colony building game some time ago, and after a while, I used to wish the bandits would turn up and burn the place down, because there was only so much deciding where the fields are and what sort of trade goods we could make, and tense negotiation sequences that I could take, and possibly it might be worth sort of looking for alternatives to combat.
I had to have a talk with my players because a lot of people's introductions to the RPG world is a dungeon crawl. And the whole point is everyone's an enemy. Open up a door, kill the enemies. Open a door, kill the enemies. Problem is it almost creates this bad habit that players think, okay, every time I see someone that's an enemy, just pull out my guns and shoot them. And I've almost had to talk to them and say, there's other ways to handle this type of stuff. It's not a dungeon crawl.
Oh, thank you for not killing me. Here's a disruptor rifle.
Yeah.
Could you give them?
Yeah, that too.
Sorry, could you give them challenges that are not things you can kill, like a natural disaster?
Yes, a plague.
Too
soon? Too soon?
Flood.
Well, yeah, I mean, they had, I'm running Beyond the Rim, and one of the creatures that attacks them is essentially these almost wasp hornet type thing. So there's nothing they can do. They got to run. They got to go jump in water or do something else. But the other thing is, you really do want them to get in the habit of, when we see our adversary, okay, yeah, we can pull out a gun and just shoot. But if they haven't started firing yet, is there something else we can do? Sometimes you just want them to watch what the adversary is doing, because maybe they're picking something up and then they could follow them.
There was a Larry Niven novel. I can't remember the name, but it was about a bunch of colonists who went down to the planet, and it had an incredibly simple ecology of terrifying monster that lived in the river full of these sort of big salmon-y creatures, and nothing else pretty much, and sort of bit of vegetation in the river. And they didn't like the big monster thingy, so they killed them all. What they didn't realise was the salmon things were actually larval versions of the monsters, and the monsters were carnivorous and the larvae were vegetarian. So the way the monster lived was it created lots of young and then let them grow up on the vegetation and then ate its own young, which kept them under control. So when the top monsters were all killed off, all the spawn turned into big horrible monsters, and well, bad things happened. And ecological problems might be an interesting sort of avenue for interaction and danger.
I see the suggestion of negative XP for killing innocents as well. I could like, if you have a really difficult group, I could see that being a plausible solution for that. Okay, we are running a bit late though, so we'll do some limited spoiler discussion for Book of Boba. This is actually the last item of the evening too. So, Book of Boba, it came to an end. What do we?
It did.
As GMs, what can we take away from the experience of this show?
I can definitely say that Mandalorian season 2.5 was pretty great.
Yeah, it was great seeing all the Mandalorian characters again, for sure. Amy Sedaris, of course, is like really wonderful as her character. I don't know if I could do like a whole show of just her character, but it's always great seeing her. I will pitch this. Honestly, the one dangling plot thread in Book of Boba is probably the most interesting one, and the most interesting characters to me, the twins. Like, as villains, they're pretty good, and there's something about them which I will suggest is a tad Lannister, perhaps.
I think that was a great. It was really intrigued because you're like, oh, we actually get to see a little bit more of like the Hutt clan, which something isn't been as developed since the Clone Wars. Yeah. But it also didn't really feel like they contributed anything to the show.
What I thought would have been an interesting twist is like the two members of the Pikes who blew up the sanctuary. Like they kept their masks on the whole time, but like, what if they were secretly agents of the twins who were like, just trying to start some stuff? I think that would have been a really interesting twist that, unfortunately, in the grand scheme of the storyline, didn't pan out because, of course, they had to get to their big shootout at the very end.
No, of course. Which I think the shootout fight scene was pretty fun.
Yeah, because I mean, Robert Rodriguez, he's done kind of similar scenes before, similar setups. The impossible odds sort of things in his other movies. You know what? Actually, I think for next month, maybe we should all watch an episode of Ewoks and discuss that instead. The old Ewoks cartoon from the 80s.
Oh, I already know what episode I'm going to use.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
Oh, then we'll probably have to go inside, make sure we don't choose the same one.
That's true. Yeah.
All right, yeah.
Okay, I don't have much else to say. Does anyone else have some parting shots or some touch of social media you'd like to plug?
Well, I'll say that next month in April, I'll be hosting one of the GM workshops where I'll be making the maps in 3D in Tabletop Simulator. So if people want to see, if people are interested to see, well, how difficult is it or how easy it is, tune in.
Yeah, I have thought about using TTS, so I would definitely tune in. Key, I think we can call it for tonight. I'd like to thank our panelists, Jyler, Jasper, Octor, and Jorune, and our producer, Key. I've been your moderator, Dave, as your GM, and I'd like to thank everyone for showing up in our audience, and bid you all a good evening.
Thanks, everyone, for joining, for asking your questions, and for being attentive, and to all our guests. Hope to see you again soon.
Yep. Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Night.
Right.